Pretending to be a straight man. Author, Chong Nianjun. Copywriting, The Journey in Hand, with an interstellar background, the full text is straight and beautiful. Li Zuxing is a gay, iron number 1, but he wears this kind of horseman. The male protagonist in this book lived more than 30 years old. He took the secret medicine at the critical moment of life and his body became younger, young and mature, passionate and pure. No one combined him more perfectly. A fine flower alive and well waiting for him to pick. But the author told Li Zuxing that you can't go back in this life. I'm a stallion. You can't get the foundation. You have to keep your personality. What are the characters in Li Zuxing's book? Little Sun, Silly Badian, the male lead's iron buddy, has become a loyal little brother to the male lead, Tai Zi. Every time he watched the male protagonist's domineering spike kill all the surrounding villains, Li Zuxing would superficially cooperate. You are so amazing. In fact, I was thinking in my heart, this man, every time a cooking apron is tied to the waist is so thin that he can hold it with 2 hands. Women who become consultants have always had a good relationship. At the bar that day, when the consultant Cheng saw his loyal little brother being touched up by a woman with heavy makeup, his face instantly turned black. The tyrannical mood in my heart was almost out of control. In the era of the full-text BG, the consultant thought that his own desire for control and possessiveness was ill. Later he discovered that he was eating that woman's jealousy. Li Zuxing, who made him so weird, was an idiot who didn't understand anything. Main attack, Li Zuxing attack, Consultant Cheng Xiao strong, the male protagonist is super possessive, offensive like to tease but not eat the original male protagonist is not reborn, but his body becomes younger content tag, Qianqi interstellar wearing book Shuangwen search keywords, protagonist, Li Zuxing, Consultant Cheng supporting role, next false and serious male got others, brief comment on works. Tai number 1 Li Zuxing is in the male frequency text. The protagonist Consultant Cheng is a super strong man who has taken the secret medicine to become younger, and he is the protagonist's sunny and upright younger brother. The consultant became a perfect fusion of the youthfulness of the boy and the maturity of the man. Li Zuxing kept the straight man admiring him calmly, but he appreciated the protagonist's desire for control and possessiveness towards him. After that, Counselor Cheng began to try to bend him, but Li Zuxing, who pretended to be a straight man, kept shouting that this was companionship. Big Dipper Central Plaza. Dozens of psychic test machines were shining in the sun, and the vigorous teenagers were crowded and noisy. They lined up in front of each test machine, waiting for the call from the person in charge of the Chengyang Military Academy. The summer sun was shining and sultry. Li Zuxing closed his eyes. His eyelids couldn't stop the white light, and his throat was so dry that he smoked. The Journey in Hand, with an interstellar background, the full text is straight and beautiful. The protagonist in the book, the Piranha Consultant Cheng, who is defined as the best by Li Zuxing, is also about to appear. He was looking forward to it. The consultant provokes the corners of his mouth. He really knows how to use his strengths, but for a moment, that refreshing youthful breath suddenly rubs into the ripe taste, and the 2 extreme temperaments are like the fruit that secretes water, showing the fullness that is about to burst. Thank you. The lady who led him has reddened cheeks, like a girl's first love. You're welcome, I wish you a smooth pass in the Chengyang Military Academy's test. Not far away, a teacher called out, next, Li Zuxing. Li Zuxing licked his skinless mouth, strode forward, and pulled out a smile at the teacher of the Chengyang Military Academy. Here. His smile has become a muscle memory, more brilliant and warm than the sun in the sky. The person in charge of the Chengyang Military Academy was stunned by his silly and sweet breath, and couldn't help but smile. Come on, start testing your mental power, you can be admitted to our school after 1,200. The value on the test machine starts from 0 and ends at 3000. The mental power testing machine controlled by the government only allows some schools, military departments, and hospitals to apply for lease, and the information during each test will be sent to the Intelligence Bureau in time. Okay, Li Zuxing nodded. Just as he was about to raise his hand to touch the sensor, the team leader on the right-hand side shouted, "The consultant is Consultant Cheng." His hand stopped. Li Zuxing tilted his head to look. A teenager walked out of the crowd and walked to the testing machine without rush. His eyes were clear and deep, and he was very tall. He easily covered the sun's rays on the person in charge, and said with a smile, "Teacher, I am here. In order to protect the mental health of underage students and the fairness and justice of teachers, the Empire specifically stipulates that minors are not allowed to test their mental power. Therefore, this group of young people knows the specific value of their mental power for the first time. The amount of mental power that has not been acquired depends on the talent, but the consultant Cheng appears confident and calm. Li Zuxing knows where his confidence comes from, not only because he is the protagonist of the book The Journey in Hand, but also because he has just taken the secret medicine, regaining his youth for 20 years, and makes the mental strength sword. This cannibalistic flower is stained with poison, and there is nowhere to sip it, even a man can't touch it. Li Zuxing looked away and pressed his hand on the sensor. The consultant Cheng began to test his mental strength almost at the same time as him. When the consultant's hand was placed on the sensor, the unmoving value of the test machine began to fluctuate violently, breaking through each value at an extremely fast speed, and soaring to 1000 without any breath, and seeing this momentum, it did not release at all. Slow trend. There was movement, and the others were startled by the sound. They turned their heads in surprise, and were startled by the speed the next moment. Li Zuxing could hear people talking about it. The original book was so rude, and only the protagonist was shining and hot on the pretending stage. The teacher who recorded the data took a deep breath, stabilized his trembling hand, and watched the data rush through 2000 step by step with scorching eyes. Go harder. His mood was agitated and he wanted to inform the school immediately. There was a flash in the consultant's eyes, and the mental power value reached the 2300 mark following his heart. The noises and exclamations were noisy, and the teachers who were still sitting before rushed to the side, their faces flushed, staring at the dazzling numbers on the machine. All are looking forward to a miracle. But at the next moment, the value was like a cliff-jumping plunge. When others' eyelids jumped, it faded like a flash in the pan. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it leisurely stopped to 1200, which was not high or low. The consultant smiled faintly at the corners of his mouth, which made him particularly pleased with the feeling of playing everyone. Meng Sao. Li Zuxing's hum was barely audible. The teacher in charge of his team returned to his senses and sighed, "What's the matter with this machine?" After talking about seeing Li Zuxing's mental strength value, the teacher was taken aback again, and said with joy, 1890. Very good. Li Zuxing, right? You have been admitted, go to the back and wait. The protagonist next to him was attracted by this sound, and looked over inadvertently, and met Li Zuxing's eyes. His vision has strong penetrating power, the sense of deterrence and clarity are mixed, both ruthless and pure. Li Zuxing raised his eyebrows and smiled. He has a sunny and handsome look. The affinity of this smile is very strong. The consultant Cheng looked at him for a few seconds, and his subordinates used force. The mental strength that had been stopped at 1200 rose again, and it was not until 1850. At every turn. The difference with Li Zuoxing's value is only 40. The teacher of Chengyang Military Academy clutched his head and repeatedly confirmed that the machine was not damaged, only to be disappointed. Consultant Cheng, 1850, admitted. Dozens of teenagers have been seated in the waiting area at the rear. Chengyang Military Academy is generally considered the first military academy in the empire. The number of enrollment is really not enough, but there are tens of thousands of people in long queues outside, not to mention that this is only the recruiting location of Big Dipper. Chengyang Military Academy is on other planets. There are 20 or 30 points in the admissions office. Li Zuxing smoothed his sweaty hair back to his head, footsteps heard, and the protagonist's pleasant voice sounded, Li Zuxing. Yes, Li Zuxing turned his head to look at him, the sun was dazzling, and he squinted, hello. Consultant Jinda thinks that this group of teenagers who don't have all the hairs are assholes. He doesn't care about the children, and naturally doesn't care about the hostility shown by the children or their friendship. Nan has never seen anyone of his age following him, but this time I rarely saw him talking and laughing with a stranger. Counselor Cheng saw her and brought people around him to greet her. Nan, long time no see, this is Li Zuxing. Nan looks at Li Zuxing curiously, ah, this is a person who makes people feel happy just looking at it, like a scorching sun and blue sky. Advisor Cheng didn't seem to feel the heat, so he and Li Zuxing found a seat nearby and sat down. Your talent is very good. Li Zuxing was surprised, aren't you similar to me? There are really not many 40 differences, the consultant said slowly, but this represents not only simple data, but also talent. In terms of talent, I miss you by 40. After training, this data will only get more and more big. Really? Li Zuxing laughed twice, not necessarily, talent can't decide everything. The consultant Cheng Dingding looked at him for 3 seconds, that's right. After a while, someone took them to the downstairs of the house near the central square. The admissions for Big Dipper will be closed the day after tomorrow. You can take advantage of these 2 days to go home and be personal with your family. Students who have nothing to deal with will wait here, and usually carry them with you. The items are prepared by the school and sent to your room later. There is a room for every 2 people, and the artificial intelligence downstairs will tell you who you should be with. Is there any question? After the students returned, the teacher in charge left with peace of mind, and Li Zuxing and the consultant were naturally divided into 2 groups with a mental strength of more than 1,800. Li Zuxing was thirsty and dumb. After entering the room, he took a bottle of water from the refrigerator and gulped it down. The sunlight was blocked outside the room, and the temperature in the room was constant, and Li Zuxing finally felt comfortable. There was a knock on the door, and the salute prepared by the school had been delivered. 2 identical black suitcases were placed side by side. He opened one casually. The uniform Chengyang Military Academy clothes were neatly stacked, and there were a few casual clothes underneath. The other half of the box contained some common daily necessities, as well as a few pairs of underwear in a bag. Li Zuxing opened one and grabbed it in his hand, then picked up a set of clothes, and asked the consultant, "Do you use the bathroom? I want to take a shower first." The consultant reached out his hand to make a gesture of please. After a while, there was a sparse sound of water in the bathroom. The consultant walked to the refrigerator, and all kinds of wine were neatly arranged. He picked out a bottle of rum, and he realized that the present is not what it used to be before he took it. Pour out a low alcoholic beverage. The 2 boxes were placed quietly on the spot. The consultant took a sip of the drink and stood up on the 2 boxes, only to find that the names of the 2 of them were written on the back of the box. Unfortunately, the one that Li Zuxing opened was exactly a box with the name Consultant Cheng written on it. The consultant raised his eyebrows and asked the side with the name to face the room grimly, ensuring that Li Zuxing could see the position when he came out. He waited with interest for the young man's reaction. School uniforms never need to be customized. 3 sizes of large, medium, and small can cover all figures. Li Zuxing took a battle bath and came out refreshingly. As soon as I came out, I saw the consultant Cheng sitting on the sofa by the wall. With long legs cocked up, the vigorous youthful aura hits on his face. His face and body were green, but his eyes and temperament were mixed with unconcealable maturity and sophistication. Men like both evil and pure objects. In this respect, no one has a more perfect combination than a consultant. It's a pity that no one in the entire book can appreciate this perfection. The consultant Cheng took the initiative. I put the box next to it. Li Zuxing laughed, Like a little son, thanks. No, Advisor Cheng took another sip of his wine and put down his long legs. You don't need to be so polite among friends. This development is not right. The consultant became this person. To put it nicely, he didn't have a common language with them, and to put it bluntly, he was too lazy to deal with the brainless and impulsive young people. But his current attitude towards Li Zuxing almost made Li Zuxing think that the consultant Jin Kai was his younger brother. With a flash of mind, Li Zuxing remembered what the author of The Journey on Hand once said to him. This world is very dangerous. In order to compensate you, I can only try my best to give you a life-saving golden finger without affecting the plot. Well, in the book, as long as you are a villain, big or small, you will feel pleasing to your eyes when you see your first side. The higher the level of the villain, the more you can't help but look at you differently. The author has something to say, is the content of the original book. It's a pit, the next false and serious male god, heart o' heart. Although he didn't finish reading the book, how could the male protagonist be the villain? What's more, look at it differently. Li Zuxing scoffed at this. He walked to the bedside table, bent over and opened the drawer below. A clean towel fell from the full drawer. The consultant Cheng walked over and picked up the white towel for him. His waist was soft, his movements were light and graceful, and his slender, white fingers grabbed the towel and sent it to Li Zuxing. His tone was relaxed and his eyes were smiling. I have to hold it this time. Li Zuxing looked at him in surprise. Thanks. He quickly drew the towel from the consultant's hand, because the movement was too fast, and the palm of his hand hurriedly wrapped the consultant's fingertips. The warm touch is fleeting. I'm afraid of life. The consultant thought this way, a little funny, and stepped back to the sofa. The school knew that freshmen would be awkward to get along with each other, so all admitted students were required to have 3 meals together in the dining room. When Li Zuxing and consultant Cheng came to the restaurant, it was already full of people. After confirming that everyone had arrived, an old man stood up, stood in the center of the restaurant, raised his hands, majestic and kind, quiet. His voice was not loud, but Li Zuxing felt that these 2 words seemed to explode in his ears, clearly distinct. The whispering ceased instantly, and the old man said, Chengyang Military Academy is the first military academy generally considered by the citizens of the empire. It never relaxes its requirements for students from beginning to end. Qualified mental power does not mean that you can be proud of it. Now, what is in front of you is a path you must go through. You will carry out your first mission in your life in 2 days. It is also the last assessment of you by Chengyang Military Academy before entering the school. The whole restaurant was silent. Everyone stared at him closely. The expressions on their faces were surprised, anxious, and worried, but they didn't flinch. The old man looked over one by one and smiled comfortingly. In 2 days, you will be sent to the mission planet randomly with the freshmen from the other 2 planets. Our school is only going to admit more than 200 people in the Big Dipper. You are the outstanding talents of the Big Dipper. I hope you can make your home star proud. As soon as he finished speaking, someone already shouted, we will. That's right. Then there were more and more people shouting, you wait and see. By that time, the people who can stay on the other 2 planets will definitely not be as good as our Big Dipper. Don't be afraid of a duel. We have already produced 2 more than 1,800 characters today, which planet can match? The young people sitting here show more or less pride and pride. The Chengyang Military Academy requires a mental strength of more than 1,200 to admit students. This has always been criticized by the citizens of the empire. They believe that the requirements of the Chengyang Military Academy are too harsh. This rule has robbed almost all the talents of the 8 major galaxies in the empire. Regardless of the small number of 1,200, for ordinary families in the empire, it is extremely rare for an old man after a century of death to exceed the value of 800 when he dies. What's more, these students of Chengyang Military Academy are all born The mental strength value is already above 1,200 without training and guidance. For ordinary people, this sounds like a shocking number. Just because it is rare, it is particularly difficult to increase mental power. Currently, the first day of enrollment has stopped, and Li Zuxing's 1,890 ranks first in the Big Dipper. Even the protagonist's consultant Cheng's performance on the bright side is 40 points behind him. In the original book, the consultant is not the second title. He suppressed his mental strength at 1,200, pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger all the way, and counterattacking his face was not good. Li Zuxing doesn't remember the content of the original book very clearly, but the general plot like this can still be recalled, but he has no reason to stop what the protagonist wants to do, and he hopes that he can change more. The elder was happy touching his beard, and turned to ask the teacher who was with him, "I heard that the mental power of your number 1 here is approaching 1900. Yes, the accompanying teacher nodded. Basically, there will be no higher level behind him. This level is not bad compared to previous years. Old man, what are the names of these 2 children? One is called Li Zuxing, and the other is called Consultant Cheng." The teacher called out Guang Nao. Before telling the old man the detailed information, a cute and lovely voice sounded at the entrance of the restaurant. "Grandfather!" The beautiful girl rushed all the way from the front door to the center, her raised hair ends in a semicircle in the air. She has a beautiful appearance, but her eyes are exceptionally smart. She ran in the direction of the old man full of joy, but was tripped over the raised carpet and fell forward in panic. This happened to be by the consultant Cheng's side. He reached out in time to hug her, and steadily held the girl in place. "Is it all right?" The girl opened her closed eyes quietly, staring at the face of the consultant Cheng in a daze. It took a long while to blush and suddenly flung away, saying, "Thank you, thank you." She backed away embarrassed, her white hands clasped together, and slowly walked towards the elder, but looked back and peeked from time to time. Anyone can spot her unskilled peeking, but she thinks she is secretive, clumsy, and cute. Li Zuxing drew out the tissue and handed it to the consultant. He just hid in time and didn't get a drop of water stains on his body. At this moment, he couldn't help but laughed, jokingly, "What a lovely girl." "It's very cute," said the consultant, wiping the implicated water glass, and smiled faintly. "Zhou Xing likes cute girls." Before Li Zuxing could answer, he looked up at the girl who was buried in her elder body and acted like a baby. "That might make Zuxing angry, but I still want to say that cute girls are not the right choice for you. How do you say?" Li Zuxing clasped his hands and held his chin to look at him. The consultant naturally said, "The woman next to the hero can't fall into conventional wisdom." With water on his fingers, he slid a few wet marks on the glass table like words and symbols. Li Zuxing looked at him for a while, lowered his head, a dull laugh came, and the consultant showed some unexpected helplessness on his face. But these helplessness were placed on his extremely young and beautiful face, but he was somewhat indifferent from the incident. The consultant has too many hole cards, and the mystery is very tricky, but Li Zuxing's people set the sky to deny him, and he is happy to make the protagonist uncomfortable. The author once wrote about Li Zuxing in detail in 2 sentences. He has the strongest curiosity, adventurous spirit not to admit defeat, and the most tenacious willpower. He is enthusiastic and energetic, but this does not mean that Li Zuxing has no attacking power. His offensive power is attached to his innocent heart. No matter how difficult the enemy, he can always defeat the enemy purely, cleanly, and without mercy, and without guilt. The author's words make Li Zhou starry. However, the feeling and aggressive point coincides with the real him. Li Zuxing is reckless and always likes to control sovereignty. In some respects, this person is not embarrassing him. The consultant Cheng Qian sighed, "You think I'm joking?" "No, no," Li Zuxing raised his eyebrows, "you praise me, it's too late for me to be happy." The look of the young man was flying, and the consultant became thoughtful. He looked around, every boy was motivated by the elders, and the expression on his face would make the adults follow him with enthusiasm. Does that still need team cooperation? If this is the case, then you need to find teammates in advance. How many partners in my heart want to cooperate? What do you think? All are enthusiastically discussing the upcoming trial. The entrance trial of Chengyang Military Academy has long been heard, said the consultant. It is necessary to form a small team. The two of us are not enough. At least 3 people are needed. He said we spontaneously, but Li Zhuoxing didn't refute, and followed his words, there will always be teammates. One is the boss on the bright side, and the boss in the dark, who lacks nothing but people. In this atmosphere, 2 days passed in a flash, and the enrollment of Chengyang Military Academy in Baiduxing was completely stopped. That night, the school administrator took them aboard the spacecraft marked with the Chengyang Military Academy and left Baiduxing. While on the spacecraft, the serious-looking chief executive once again said the news that the elders said that day. Then, before you get off the spacecraft, I need to get your team information. The students who had been admitted in the past 2 days heard the news for the first time and were in an uproar at this time. They watched the person who had been admitted first come forward to report their team information, and said loudly, "This is not fair. We don't know each other's information capabilities, how do we select teammates? Why can these people form a team in advance, and why do they know the news ahead of us?" "There is nothing unfair," the head of the school said calmly, "they also got news by accident. Luck is also a kind of ability. If you are lucky enough, you can get this news on the first day." But, they still felt unbelievable, and even someone stood up, flushed and confronted the person in charge. "But why? Does the school leave it alone?" The person in charge smiled and glanced at the 2 freshmen with the highest mental energy among the freshmen who were quietly watching the show next to the crowd. The next sentence pulled them down, "There are 2 sides to everything, and you really lose. You have some first-hand opportunities, but at the same time, you are a little more fortunate than them. At least in the range you can choose, there are 2 first and second with more than 1,800 mental power." As soon as he said his words, the students who had guilt on their faces turned into envy and jealousy, and the latter group of dissatisfied people were speechless. They were not sure what it meant, and looked at each other. "Oh my God, does this mean that the 2 people with the highest mental abilities have not formed a team yet? What did the group of people eat? The 2 big men in front of them hadn't fawned for 2 days. It was such a good opportunity for nothing." They still maintained the previous look on their faces, but gloated in their hearts. Their dissatisfaction calmed down a lot, and then they quietly asked the people around who were these 2 men with over 1,800 mental powers. Many people have already begun to figure out how to hook up. Gangster. The best news is that they haven't teamed up yet, and the big guys should be worried about their teammates. After all, it's hard to think about teaming up when it comes to the mission planet, because students from all planets will inevitably try to get everything done on the spacecraft. Those who are under the quilt are mixed. In this case, it means that all of them have a chance. The position of Li Zuxing and consultant Cheng slowly became the focus of attention, and the people around were already ready to move, as if they would be able to jump over in the next moment and bring an 8,000 character self-introduction. "Do you think it?" Li Zuxing said suddenly. The consultant was puzzled. "We are like naked girls in a pile of men." Li Zuoxing touched his nose, trying to use metaphors to resonate with straight men. "It's still 36D. The author has something to say. De Diao didn't finish reading the original work, and the fast food culture, you can remember after reading it, he doesn't know more specific." The consultant became choked by the drink. In an instant, 3 or 4 boys graciously handed over the tissue. "Is it okay? I'll pour you a glass of water slowly." All of their actions were full of enthusiasm and eagerness. If it hadn't been for Li Zuxing's words just now, the consultant Cheng would have taken the tissue naturally, and then smiled and signaled to them, but now it is really weird. "Zuxing, the consultant wiped his mouth with a tissue, wisely changing the subject. What do you think about the members of our team? The onlookers had silently pricked their ears, and the line of sight staring at him instantly became fiery. He threw the question back, what do you think? Li Zuxing waited for the protagonist to say yes, I have already figured out who the teammate is. Who knew that consultant Cheng even smiled and wrote lightly, I haven't thought about it. Li Zuxing. Are you serious? Yes, Counselor Cheng looked at him meaningfully, and suddenly smiled strangely, it's up to you now. After he said this, the people sitting next to Li Zuxing plucked up the courage to recommend themselves, hey, me, can you see me? The freckled teenager's face flushed red, and Kikai glanced at the consultant Cheng and then at Li Zuxing. Li Zuxing patted him on the shoulder. He didn't say anything, but the meaning was very clear. This buddy retreated with a bitter expression. Without waiting for someone to introduce himself to me, Li Zuxing and the protagonist looked at each other and walked from the front of the spaceship to the back. The consultant Cheng sat in his place and watched him leave, staring sideways. The uniform of the military academy was worn on him, from the hair to the black boots. He was so handsome that he had no friends. The Chengyang Military Academy's spacecraft is very large. Apart from the 200 freshmen and staff, there is still a lot of space. Li Zuxing stopped when he reached the middle part and seemed to be talking with others. This distance is only useful for consultants. My eyes can't hear anything. He cocked his legs, propped his face with one hand, and no one's visible mental power was as thick as hair, spread from him, shuttled through the crowd, and reached Li Zuxing with unparalleled accuracy. Yes, I have never seen anyone who is better at StarNet than him. This trace of spiritual power surrounded Li Zuxing boldly and blended into the air, and none of the person in charge of the spacecraft nor the teacher had noticed it. Then Li Zuxing's words came to an abrupt end. He frowned and looked around, seeing nothing, but the strange feeling of being peeped lingered. What's the matter? The boy who answered his question also turned his head curiously, are you looking for Ling Nian? He won't be here, according to his habit, he is definitely hiding in a corner with few people right now. Quietly pondering those mechanical parts that we don't understand, it's not that I said, he hasn't tried to find his teammates until now. Are the little things assembled and the data of the star network more important than the entrance trial? Li Zuxing sat next to him, and he replied, really? But the whole heart was placed around him, calmly observing what was wrong around him, and gradually, a mysterious feeling surrounded him. The surrounding sounds became far away, and the sound of the people next to him seemed to be isolated by a transparent wall. Only his own strong heartbeat became clearer in his ears. The consultant paused in a leisurely posture. He put down his legs, turned his head completely, and looked at Li Zuxing. The mist-like mental power fluctuations grew from small to large, and gradually attracted the attention of people around. Without a teacher, Li Zuxing condensed his spiritual power into a rope, and tentatively began to probe around. His unconcealed ability, his unabashed action alarmed the person in charge in the spacecraft. The person in charge stood up and looked at him. Looking at Li Zuxing scorchingly, he laughed happily and said to the people around him, quickly turn on the mental power jammer. Followed by his teacher, admired, this kid is really amazing. I have been a teacher for so many years. This is the first time I have seen that mental power can be realized without systematic learning and guidance. It's incredible. The person in charge was happy, but said on his face, what does he want to do with his mental strength in the student group? It must be educated. Such students must be merciless, otherwise one by one will be pretentious and think that he has some ability. Just be arrogant and arrogant, can you get it in the future? The teacher smiled, knowing that he was not disliked by this child named Li Zuxing, on the contrary, he was the number one who valued the Big Dipper so much that he was even more worried. The first time he used his mental power, Li Zuxing had been dissipated by the jammer before he tasted anything, as if returning to reality from the illusion in an instant, and the surrounding noise came like a tide. He opened his eyes and saw the military academy. The teacher came to him with a serious expression, and said a few words in a gentle tone, telling him not to use mental power on the spaceship. Li Zuxing admitted his mistake very well. The teacher, who was originally a straight face, couldn't help but smile and said with satisfaction, "If you have talent, don't let down your talent. The hard work of the day after tomorrow is also very important. The method of realization is not systematic, and it will be much better to use it after being taught by the college in the later period. The teacher hopes you don't worry." "I understand," Li Zuxing smiled and smiled, "I will." The strange feeling that made him particularly uncomfortable before has disappeared, and he failed to capture any useful information in the short span of using his mental power, which aroused Li Zuxing's eagerness. If he is not strong, there is no guarantee. He is eager for strength and desires to be strong. He must raise his abilities to an absolute height. After the teacher left, the boy next to him was so surprised that he couldn't speak. Li Zuxing guessed that he couldn't find any useful information. After thanking him, he threw himself and fell down. A strong and burly boy said that the young man was sorry for his figure, and the whole ground was driven by him for a few earthquakes, and there was poor dust flying in the air. "Okay, it hurts. Laozi hurts." Li Zuxing seemed to hear this person sobbing, and there was a pitiful smell in his rough voice. "But the picture of a bearded man has a bit spicy eyes." "It's okay, buddy." Li Zuxing pulled the person up. This guy supported his upper body with his strength. His nose was red. It should have been a lacrimal gland, and there was water in his eyes. He looked at Li Zuxing, fierce. He stared. "What kind of broken spacecraft? There is still a puddle of water in the aisle. I'm so unlucky, I fell into the water." Li Zuxing: "Yes, broken spacecraft." The brawny man sniffed, "I'm the most resistant to beatings. It doesn't hurt at all after falling. You don't need to help, I can stand up by myself." Li Zuxing said, "Farewell, I am enthusiastic, and I like to move forward when I see my classmates have something to do." The person who fell just maintained the dignity of his brawny man, and his eyes were flushed red without shed a tear. Zinan, the boy following him, was silent for a while, and couldn't help it. "The edge of your red underwear is exposed." Sinan covered the edge of the red underwear with his backhand, and pulled the muscle he hit. His expression was instantly distorted. The tears in his eyes could no longer hold back, and he fell down with no money. The fierce man shed tears, not arousing pity, and a bit funny. The boy behind him was obviously familiar with this scene. He sighed, took a tissue from his pocket, knelt down and wiped the tears on Zinan's face. "I'm so strong, how can I cry so much?" Li Zuxing felt people cry more vigorously. He sighed, squatted down to pat the boy's back, with a soothing expression, and said to the teacher and classmate who came to ask about it, "How's it going? Has it been relieved?" Language and even facial expressions are pleasant. If a complete stranger behaves in this way, it is difficult for others to have a good impression of him. Jiu looked at him when he was wiping tears to Zinan, and had a good feeling for this young man with one of the best mental powers. He glanced at Zinan. He was a little embarrassed by his friends who had always been careless, and his eyes were dodgy. Certainly the thoughts in his heart are the same as him. Jiu and Zinan have completely different personalities. He usually doesn't like to talk, but he is sincere and bold in expressing. After wiping away the tears on Zinan, he pulled up his friend, walked to Li Zuxing, and fought seriously. "Straight ball, hello, my name is Jiu, and his name is Zinan, can I make friends?" Full of sincerity and expectation. The protagonist will find his teammates for the rest of his life during the entrance trial. This team led by him later became the dream team of the Chengyang Military Academy. It has never failed and has a brilliant record. It is a fate that can give each other backs. Brother. Most of the readers who follow the book The Journey on Hand are attracted by the feelings between them. The passionate and unyielding teenagers are tempered into men step by step in adventurous difficulties. They enjoy flowers and applause. They are both inside and outside. There will always be two faces, they keep all their trust in each other, and they can fight to the end for their brothers and everything. The dark theme does not lack suitors, but the sincere friendship between heroes will always bring tears to people's eyes. Sinan was dissatisfied with his friend who was one step ahead of him. Hey! The two members of the future dream team extended their hands to him, showing that they are mature and want to make this handshake look extraordinarily serious. Li Zuxing has a strange feeling of witnessing the story happening. The rudimentary form of the team appeared before him, and he became one of them from a bystander. He stretched out his hand, but this feeling did not make him annoying, and said with a smile, "It's all friends, then I'm not welcome." Li Zuxing looked at the front of the spaceship, and the consultant stood upright with his hands in his pockets. After looking at him, he suddenly came to this side. He moved his gaze to the faces of the two future teammates in front of him, and continued, "Can you please join our team?" "Please," the consultant Cheng just walked nearby. He naturally took Li Zuoxing's words, leaned on the back of a nearby chair with one hand, and smiled at them, "Promise us." Jiu and Zinan looked at each other, firmly, "Let's join." The author has something to say, teammates are very good, all eat dog food, Omega. The team information must be reported to the person in charge before getting off the spacecraft. Time is not waiting, and the consultant seems to know what Li Zuxing is thinking. Besides us, there is another person who wants to join our team. Behind him walked out a boy with a cold temperament and an iceberg. His eyes were like a deep pool, and he said calmly, "I am Ling Nian, a mechanical and star network expert." Handsome, abstinence, and this shameless confidence are indeed the same as described in the book. Li Zuxing looked at him and the consultant in surprise. What a coincidence! Ling Nian shook his head and said concisely, "It's not a coincidence." He saw the scene of Li Zuxing and his classmates asking him on the light brain. Although Ling Nian was confident of his own strength, he also knew that the entrance trial could not be completed by machinery and technology alone, so he made a decisive decision to join Li Zhou. The team of stars. Only after coming out of the corner, the mentally powerful teenager had already had a good conversation with the other two people, so he went directly to Li Zuxing's partner and consultant Cheng. The consultant was not at all surprised by his intentions, but said in a vague way, "Deserved of him." Ling Nian's optical brain collected all the materials that the Big Dipper could record, and knew that the mental power of the person in front of him was as high as 1850, and he was as powerful as the person named Li Zuxing. But at this moment, he is a little wondering whether the data is wrong. The future teammate called the consultant Cheng looks more than that simple. After confirming the team members, Li Zuxing reported the team information to the person in charge. The trial mission of Chengyang Military Academy lasts for 5 days. During this period, everyone will be equipped with a quantitative nutrient solution and a small rescue device the size of a thumb cover. The mission planet is a broken star in the 7th galaxy of the 8 major galaxies of the Empire. Broken Star is a primitive planet. In addition to the backward technology, there are a large number of ferocious beasts that have evolved through the ages. These beasts are not lacking in attacking power. After the spacecraft landed, the students who had received information from this planet looked at the outside scene. Heavy. Not only Big Dipper landed, but also freshmen from 2 other planets. As the number 1 on the Big Dipper, Li Zuxing was arranged in the forefront by the person in charge, leading the 200 freshmen behind him to join the other 2 parties. After the 3 chiefs of each planet had finished speaking, the person in charge of the Big Dipper asked, "How about the qualifications of the planetary students you are responsible for?" "Not bad," the younger teacher said with a smile, "although it is not as good as the peak period. Qiangxing's first place this year has a mental power of more than 180, but it is a pity. The second place is 1006. The older person in charge sighed and shook his head without speaking. The person in charge then asked, more than 1008, what is the specific number? 1806. Coincidentally, the person in charge said, the second place on the Big Dipper has the same mental power as yours, 1850, which is not bad. The other two persons in charge were surprised. Second place. The person in charge said, the first place is only 1890. There is nothing to say, and this kid is so bold that he has put his mental power on the spacecraft. I also look forward to this trial to teach him some lessons. The two persons in charge exclaimed, and then their eyes fell on Li Zuxing. Li Zuxing touched his nose and sneered, "Teacher, I already know that I was wrong, there will be no next time." The person in charge gave a faint hum, and finished showing off with satisfaction and stopped talking. Then they were taken to a clearing where no grass grows on the broken star. There are more than 600 students from the three parties standing together, occupying only a small area in the huge open space of the broken star. The environment of this planet is harsh. The lowest of this open space is flying with high winds, and the distance is visible to the naked eye, and one end is dense virgin forest. One end is the cold polar region with heavy snow. The consultant Cheng Yuan looked at for a while. Which side do you want to choose? Zinan said very imposingly, "Forest, forest. They are still hot after being eaten by wild beasts, and it's so cold over there that we are dead uncomfortable." Ji Yu and Ling Nian glanced at him contemptuously. "I won't die," the consultant still looks so relaxed. This posture infected others unconsciously and calmly listened to what he said. The more powerful things are, the more harmless they are, and the more harmless things are, the more harmless things are. I have to hide my power. The harsh environment of Broken Star is just a fragile disguise for this planet. Li Zuxing glanced at him, guessing that this is probably the reason why he himself likes to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger. The consultant Cheng was right. The school had already conducted more than 10 inspections and explorations on the Broken Star and fully confirmed that there was nothing extremely dangerous on the Broken Star. At the same time, they also have invisible equipment to follow around the students to ensure their safety. The rescuer has disposable protective covers and compressed medicines. In addition, the school security forces and medical teams at high altitudes are on standby 24 hours a day. Monitor the physical condition of the students at any time. As long as anyone is wrong, they will be successfully taken over by the large army within 5 seconds. Of course, if students encounter a dangerous situation but are not ready to press the rescuer, they will not forcibly take the person away, but pay close attention to the situation of the student, and will resolutely take action only when the life is definitely endangered. Because in the history of Chengyang Military Academy, there were 2 students who encountered a crisis during the entrance trial and exploded. After they talked a few words, the school issued the equipment. In addition to the nutrient solution and the photon weapon, there was a military dagger. After the items were completely distributed, these people even got on the spaceship without saying a word. Left. The students from the 3 parties looked at the spaceship that was rising with a huge roar in a daze. In a blink of an eye, all the teachers left. The representatives in the front looked at each other and couldn't help but said, "Did your teachers tell you anything?" Several people shook their heads and slapped their tongues. "This is too irresponsible." Li Zuxing thinks he likes this style very much. But the teachers left suddenly, and the more than 600 students behind them did not react. They were all still staying in place to watch the sky. Li Zuxing directly asked the consultant Cheng, "Shall we start?" The consultant Cheng Han smiled and asked, "Number 1, you have to do something." In this lowest sky, his smile is just like a tender pink lotus. "Why is there dirty on your face?" Li Zuxing personally raised his hand to stroke the side of his face. "Can you pay attention to such a handsome face? Not only looks tender, but feels tenderer." The consultant's eyebrows jumped, seeming a little surprised. Before he could speak, Li Zuxing was ready to fulfill the obligation of the first place. After coughing twice, a word was just half a note, and the consultant became enlightened. "Use mental power." How to use mental power. He just thought of this, there was a force in his body that seemed to break out of the cocoon, and he was about to get a little hot. It felt the same as before on the spacecraft. Li Zuxing followed the brain's reaction and said, "Everyone find your teammates, take good care of them. The equipment is now beginning to spread." The floating spiritual power carried his words to everyone's ears, as clear and loud as an explosion. Li Zuxing would not be able to accurately grasp the range, so the spiritual power enveloped any corner he could cover. This sentence was not only heard by the freshmen on the Big Dipper, but also by people from the other two schools. As soon as the elders left, it was inevitable that some of the disturbed students subconsciously listened to this sentence, and when they gathered with their teammates and prepared to disperse, they realized that the sentence was said by one of the students present. "Who is it? Is it a person from our planet? I heard that our Qiangxing's first mental power is more than 1018. It is almost this great god. I didn't expect that he would be able to achieve this level before enrolling. Look at myself, even the spiritual power. I can't catch it anywhere. Fuck, our planet number 1 is so powerful. After the entrance trial, isn't that the safe number 1? Of course, you will know how to use it as soon as you measure your mental power. People from the other 2 planets will just watch it, and who will let the geniuses be the sun star? Ha 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 ha." The Tian's-Hixing students who did not show up were envious and bleak, and there was a freshman on the Big Dipper passing by. He couldn't help but said, "Who said this is the first thing to say on your planet? I'm blind if I don't find out clearly. Bragging, isn't it shameful?" Little friction between the freshman, Li Zuxing, and the others didn't know, they took their good things and walked to the end of the forest. Ji Yu said, "The nutrient solution given by the school is only enough for 2 days. The rest of the people sighed, there are still some animals on the broken star that can be eaten by humans. Use these to solve them first, and save the nutrient solution for later use." Ling Nian raised his wrist and opened the projection on the light brain. The golden data stream appeared in front of them, and an irregular round planet was rotating on it, which was undoubtedly a broken star. Zinan took a breath. "Didn't the school say that the information jammer has been turned on? I connected to the star network on the spacecraft." Ling Nian magnified the broken star, and the appearance of the forest end was shown in front of them. His hands were constantly flying on the light brain, and the images on the virtual images were constantly changing, appearing more and more. A scene of animals everywhere in the forest. The school has placed 328 monitors in the forest, enough for us to grasp all changes. This time even Jiyu couldn't help but praised, "Awesome." Ling Nian's mouth was slightly tilted, turning to look at the other 3 people. Zinan patted his shoulder excitedly, all admiration in his eyes could run out. Li Zuxing gave him a thumbs up, and the consultant sent it to him quite understandably. Applause. "Very well, Ling Nian, who has been praised by several people, is satisfied," passing the 5 directions of east, west, south and north to the light brain of his teammates to ensure that all angles can be controlled by his own person. Sure enough, they stepped into the forest called Beast Forest by interstellar adventurers. The forest looks beautiful and fresh from the outside, but not as good as it looks inside. The huge ancient branches and leaves were lush to cover the sky, and the sunlight shed light spots in the jungle, and the light brain couldn't watch it from time to time. After all, they were now also in the school's monitor. They headed towards the water source in the center of the beast forest, and their journey went smoothly. The group relaxed a little. Ji Yu couldn't help but said, "It looks like there will be no accidents today." Li Zuxing is over. In the book, what Ji Yu is most famous for is not his handsome and his cold humor, he can freeze people to death. It's his crow's mouth. Sure enough, as soon as his words fell, a snow-white figure suddenly emerged from the forest. After seeing them, the beautiful white fox changed direction and cleverly hid in the grass behind them. Immediately afterwards, the loud beasts roared and kept approaching, and the dust particles on the ground were bounced by the vibration. A huge, violent beast appeared in front of them, staring at them scarletly, roaring angrily, saliva dripping from the big mouth of the blood basin, burning the ground into small holes. A group of people. They silently looked back at the little fox. The little fox's blue eyes like the sky can look back cutely and lovingly. A beast in estrus, what did you fox do to it? The author has something to say. Fox, cute.jpg burst means the explosion of a small universe. The beasts in estrus have no reason at all. The one in front of them, which is obviously a representative of powerful combat effectiveness, roared and rushed over. The 5 people hurriedly avoided a blow. Li Zuxing drew out a photon weapon, and a long silver-white beam of light gathered in front of the silver metal with a large palm. Others also opened their weapons speechlessly. The photon energy sword obviously brought a sense of crisis to the beast, but it was even more irritable. A pair of scarlet eyes fixed on the nearest Li Zuxing, and the soil under his feet was deeply concaved by it. But Li Zuxing was very excited. This excitement was beyond his own expectations. For the first time in his life, he encountered such a situation as a beast, but he seemed to be a natural passionate. The adventurous factor made him feel that the blowing wind smelled of blood, and he longed. Inserting the energy sword in his hand into the body of the beast fascinated him more than modern feasting and high-rise buildings. He put his weapon in front of him. His actions caught the attention of the consultant Cheng around him, and the consultant Cheng saw his eyes. Very focused, eager, and ready to move. The advisor Cheng silently blew his whistle, but rushed up with his weapon before Li Zuxing. His appearance is as young and energetic as a real 18-year-old boy, but there is no second person in the world who knows the real secret of the consultant. He is not 18 years old, he has lived in this world for 38 years. His mental power is the mental power that an adult has been tempered for 20 years, and the forbidden drugs taken at the moment of life and death have made his mental power soar. What's more, the previous consultants are the most interstellar. The excellent ones. When the body returned to youth, this was probably a sweet trouble. The photon energy sword made a scar on the beast's body, and Li Zuxing followed closely, taking advantage of the beast's failure to respond, deepening the wound again. Retreat. After they retreated, the tail of the beast slammed into the place angrily, smashing a long pit. Sharp-toothed beast, its saliva is strongly corrosive, its tail contains poisonous thorns, and its skin is thick. Ling Nian quickly flipped through the information, one of the 5 most difficult beasts to deal with before the broken star. There is very little information about hunting the sharp tooth, and he has not found the key to hunting it. Luck for us, Sinan spit out while leading the monster. He didn't know why the beast was staring at the consultant. He could only try to attract the beast's attention. Where is this guy's weakness? The consultant is deliberate, under the chin. But he didn't say, Fei Dan didn't say, and he tried his best, and the attack became slower. He and Li Zuxing attracted most of Sharptooth's attention, and after he retreated, the attack intensity was greatly reduced to Li Zuxing. Li Zuxing didn't have time to figure out what the protagonist wanted to do, his blood was boiling, and his head was full of thinking that I would kill him. If a beast can't get rid of it, what can you do with a man? At the moment when the consultant pretended to be invincible, Li Zuxing retreated abruptly to help jump up, and across the beast, the photon energy sword pulled out a long wound. The sharp tooth shook its body frantically, and its tail flicked frantically. Li Zuxing had already jumped to Zinan's side. The blood is too thick to constitute a fatal injury. He wants to kill with a single blow. How can he kill this damned sharp tooth with a single blow? Mental power, how to let the mental power attack? In the chin. Ji Yu's eyes lit up, and he attracted the attention of the sharp tooth to himself. The soft jaws of the huge beast were exposed to the other side. Can you attack? It's difficult, Zinan was worried, jumping over the tail waving to share the pressure on him. I can't make it through. Li Zuxing, I can. He clenched the energy sword, the thin and dense lightning-like light wrapped around the photon energy sword, and even made a crackling sound. The manifested mental power knows the master's thoughts, and every flash of light reveals aggression and threat. The feeling that the spiritual power was released was very beautiful, as if the whole world was controlled by oneself, and the whirling leaves and the shaking of the green grass around him were all noticed by him. The photon energy sword can't bring fatal damage to the sharp-toothed beast, but Li Zuxing thinks that the mental power is okay. He thought he could kill it with one blow. The consultant's eyes flashed. He backed away from the attack route for Li Zuxing, and Jiu and Zinan took the sight of Sharp-Tooth with hands and feet. When Sharp-Tooth felt the crisis, it was too late. The beam of light pierced its jaw, and its mental power penetrated its skin, slamming its head like lightning from the flesh and blood. Run directly from the inside. The lightning-like mental power dissipated in the air, and the huge beast smashed to the ground with a bang. The consultant Cheng had already dissipated the mental power. He had already invaded the beast's brain. As early as when the sharp tooth first appeared, his hidden perfect mental power had entered its brain, and he could kill it at any time. After a sudden battle ended, the five people looked at each other. Ling Nian suddenly looked at Li Zuoxing with fiery eyes. You are attacking with mental power. Li Zuoxing was inexplicably guilty. Yes. Zinan and Jiyu reacted. Fuck. You can already use your mental power as a means of attack before you start the class. Isn't it the same as the starting line? The starting line is the same? Do you think it can be the same in front of the protagonist? Li Zuoxing secretly complained. But he still won't hide his mental power. This is a drawback, and he still needs to solve it as soon as possible. Although people are more heart-stirring than others, at least this is his own teammate. After a few people comforted themselves in their hearts, Jiu asked, is anyone injured? He looked at Counselor Cheng worriedly, and Counselor Cheng thought for a while, put away the energy sword, and put the metal handle back on his body, somewhat lost. Beauty is a beauty in the end, he just looks a little tired, but his feeling of pity doubles. Thank you. Zinan looked at him sympathetically. Sharp Tooth doesn't know why it is staring at you. Just now 60% of the attacks were directed at you. In fact, Sinan really admires him. He doesn't look as strong as him, but it really lasts for a long time. If it is him, let alone get out of strength at the moment, whether he is hurt or not. Several people put away their weapons, and Li Zuoxing put the consultant's arm on his shoulder. I will support you. He put his arms around the waist of the consultant. Li Zuoxing's hand was wide and hot, and when he held it on the waist of consultant Cheng, he suddenly realized that the protagonist's waist was exceptionally thin. He can hold most of it with one hand. The mental power that had just emerged was about to move, crawling along the master's palm to the consultant Cheng's body, bringing a burst of tingling electric thoughts. There was even a trace of mental energy that came to the consultant Cheng's face naughty, and carefully touched his long curled eyes, playing with him, so that the consultant closed his eyes uncomfortably, playing the stars. Stop playing. The beautiful eyes were still trembling slightly. Li Zuoxing said, be careful with your steps. He tightened his arms abruptly, and before the protagonist opened his eyes in shock, he had firmly clasped the consultant in his arms. Wengxiang Nephrite entered his arms, and the waist of the consultant was tightly narrowed by him. The two young bodies were close to each other without leaving a gap. The next second that Li Zuoxing had already let go of the consultant. The scent pounced for a moment, and it was charming. How is it? Li Zuoxing smiled brightly, his big white teeth neat and beautiful. It's okay, weird. Consultant Cheng paused. Thanks for your hard work. He put most of his weight on Li Zuoxing's body. Where is that little fox? Zinan ran over to take a look, but unfortunately, run. He thumped his chest, and said, I haven't eaten fox meat. The meat was in front of my eyes and it ran away. The consultant Cheng also sighed, I thought I could have an extra meal today. The skin and flesh of sharp-toothed beasts are very hard for humans to eat, so such a large piece of meat can only be thrown at this cheap other carnivorous animal. Li Zuoxing was led by them to think seriously, if you catch it, you can't eat it, no tools. With a knife and no seasoning, it may not be delicious if you grill the skin. I have a belt. Ling Nian, with a handsome face with a paralyzed face, opened the belt button, and a small space popped out under the metal buckle. There were several bags of transparent seasoning inside. Each bag was only the size of a thumb, but the imperial seasoning was originally used after being concentrated. These are definitely enough. The faces of several people were happy, more happy than killing the sharp-toothed beast, moved. Fuck, we can eat meat. Ling Nian had no expression on his face. I said before that the nutrient solution is reserved for future use. Are you kidding me? I'm hungry now. Li Zuxing made a pitiful expression. This fox ran away. It can catch other animals all the way to the water source. There are still fishes. Let's hurry up. Ling Nian glanced at him disgustingly, and his eyes were desolingly written. How come you are the first bearer like you? The rest of the journey was safe, but everyone did not relax their vigilance. The consultant Cheng looked sideways at Li Zuxing, not knowing if he was alleviating the embarrassment just now, and said, "Your mental talent has surprised me time and time again." Li Zuxing laughed, and patted twice with the hand holding his waist, moving slowly and gently. I have a lot to learn. How could this place be so suitable to be hugged in his arms? Take your time, the consultant said in a soothing tone. You don't need to be too anxious, because you have left most of the people behind, and now you have the capital to rest and stay. He seemed to be saying an established fact, they can't catch up with you. Li Zuxing, you think of me so much, I'm shy. Then teammates, you have to be faster, and the second place shouldn't be too far behind the first place. This is so cute, the consultant Cheng smiled sorely that his cheeks hurt, then I have to work hard. There was a sound of gurgling water not far ahead. Zinan yelled in surprise, dragging Jiu and Ling Nian to rush, not forgetting to turn around and urging them, what are you doing? Come on, come on, come on. Us. In return for your encouragement to me, Consultant Cheng continued to say just now, I. The words behind him were covered by the sound of water and frolicking. The three big boys in front stood upright on the spot, bewildered not knowing whether to step back or move forward. In the center of the stream, 4 beautiful young girls are playing in the water. Their clothes are stacked on the shore, wearing only close-fitting and intimate clothing, and transparent water drops on their white skin. Silver bells of laughter rang around. The author has something to say. After writing so many books, I finally use the word silver bell. They were also wearing close-fitting clothing, and the water droplets rose up, and the laughter was pleasant to hear. The 3 Sinan people walking in front were embarrassed and embarrassed. The opposite is in front, don't want to be ashamed. The consultant wanted to stand up straight, but he used a bit of strength, but his waist was still firmly in the palm of Li Zuxing's hands. Tight and firm, this feeling of being controlled by another same made his scalp numb. I'm fine, he had to say, I have had enough rest. Okay, Li Zuxing let go of him steadily, and the girls in the stream in front of him had already noticed their existence. A little exclamation sounded, and the 4 girls dived to the bottom of the water, only showing their rouge-colored faces, looking shyly and shyly. Who are you? Ling Nian stepped back to Li Zuxing with a stern face and gave this embarrassing opportunity for dialogue to Jiu and Zinan. Zinan hit Jiu's shoulder, and Jiu could only be forced to speak, we are students of the Big Dipper. There are 9 words in a sentence, and he doesn't know what to say no matter how much. However, each of them has a handsome face. They look decent and don't say anything. They are the new classmates of the Chengyang Military Academy. The girls in the water laughed, still a little embarrassed, and explained, a small beast was hunted down on the road. The blood on this beast made people itch all over, and all the blood on the body was rushed to be washed away. Oh! Jiu said dryly, thank you. Li Zuxing smirked, Jiu, how can you be so cute? Cheng, a consultant who has always been good for women, calmed down and evoked a charming smile, you will make the girls unhappy. Jiyu was stiff, but fortunately the other party couldn't hear them joking. They wondered if they should get up and put on their clothes, and secretly glanced at the 5 boys not far away. The temperament is different, but they are all excellent. The leading girl pointed to the depths of the stream. It's upstream. If you want a clean water source, you can go there. If you also need to clean it, she looked at the blood stains on their bodies, blushing and drooping her eyes, like a mosquito, you can also wait for us to clean it here. No, Zinan and Jiyu shook their heads and waved their hands, no, 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 we don't need to wash. At this moment, the laughter of the consultant Cheng and Li Zuxing could no longer be restrained, and the 2 people laughed directly into anger. Without saying more, they dragged them to run upstream. Don't laugh. Sinan blushed and twisted, oh, isn't that embarrassing? His sturdy body is twisted together, his fingers are tangled, it can be seen that he is really very embarrassed. Jiyu sighed deeply, feeling that he was really persuaded just now, and he was a little better than Zinan, a fool. The laughter of the girls behind them was looming, and they couldn't hear them after walking a few steps further upstream. It is necessary to apologize for hurting the fragile self-esteem of the teenagers. Li Zuxing and consultant Cheng turned their heads to suppress the raised corners of their mouths. Girls like boys with inexperience and innocence. You just performed very well, perfect. It seems to make sense, Zinan nodded involuntarily, it seems to be the same. They walked all the way in, Ling Nian was a cheat device, and they didn't need to jot down the distance at all. When you think it's almost the same, stop and prepare to solve the problem of eating. The stream was about to end, and there were no traces of animals swimming in the clean and clear water. Several people packed up some firewood and prepared to hunt some small edible animals. After Ling Nian made sure that there was no invisible surveillance from the military academy, he turned on Guang Nao, but the next moment he frowned and his face was solemn. What's wrong? Someone is calling for help nearby. Ling Nian put down his hand, but the signal was destroyed, and the signal from the helper was looming. It could not reach 500 meters from the ground and the school could not receive it. The expressions of several people changed. How come? The interference frequency fluctuates between 30-50, Ling Nian, this is the NO28 signal jammer commonly used by interstellar pirates. Sinan exclaimed, interstellar pirates. The consultant smiled, can you find the location of the distress signal? Ling Nian said, it is within 500 meters of the surrounding area, and the signal can only be received after entering this range. He paused, looked at the partners in front of him one by one, and asked, help. The interstellar pirates are all the most criminal fugitives on the Empire's wanted list. They are cruel and cruel. In addition, they are very clingy and provoke 100 times. They are extremely difficult existences. In the history of the Empire, there have been no fewer than 10 actions to eliminate interstellar pirates. But this is like a weed in the universe that is endless and endless. This is basic common sense, and everyone in the Empire knows it. But his teammates all stood up and put out the firewood cleanly, let's go. After saving people, they must help us hunt. Now I feel so hungry that I can eat a whole sharp-toothed beast. If there is a chance to meet the sharp tooth next time, I will send you to eat it alone. Jiyu, don't talk nonsense. The corners of Ling Nian's mouth curled up slightly, and then his expressionless face returned. Together with his partner, he clenched his weapon and cautiously moved towards the target location. Nan leaned closely with her companion. Her hands and feet were tied, and her hands were worn out with blood. She bit her lip, kept her composure with pain, and kept her sanity in pain amidst the cry of collapse. Nan, her companion choked so much that he couldn't say a word, it's going to die, we're going to die. The fear in her heart swallowed all courage like a black hole, and Anayan's eyes filled with water. She resisted and comforted her companions, we will not die. Although the forest of the beasts is dangerous, the scenery has always been very beautiful. The bright sunlight shed light spots from the leaves, but to the young girls tied under the tree, it was even more terrifying than hell. There were about a dozen of them, and they were rudely surrounded by a circle. The men standing outside and walking anxiously kept trying to turn on Guang Nao. Damn! After failing to open the light brain again, he kicked a student who was closest to him, with a grim expression, "Where to choose is not good, but I came here to practice while Lao Tzu was escaping." The pirate kicked the student directly 1 meter away, and the kicked boy curled up in pain, foaming in his mouth. Nan closed her eyes in fear, her hands and feet were cold, and the man cursed angrily, constantly venting his anger on them. The man wanted was a pirate leader. The team he had taken before was hunted by the Imperial Army. The brothers died and wounded. He was the only one left to fight for a way out, but the spacecraft was hit to an important part in the process of fleeing. Can only force landing on the broken star of the 7th galaxy. I thought I could be contacted to pick him up, but who knew that this planet was actually used by the Chengyang Military Academy as a trial for new students, and no information could be passed on. If this continues, he won't be his people anymore. I'm afraid it's only a matter of time before the Imperial Army finds it. The more he thought about it, the more gloomy his face became, and he pulled a girl who was struggling to retreat casually, and said with a sneer, "I'm going to kill you all when he dies." The elites of Chengyang Military Academy are just right for Lao Tzu's sandbags, women. Just give Lao Tzu a last refreshment. Nan twisted and struggled violently, tears spurting out. "Go away." The pirate chief smiled sullenly and pulled her neckline with his hand. "Little beauty, you can still be refreshed before I killed you. I still like you better than the few breastless and next to you." Nan closed her eyes in despair, nauseously trying to vomit. Just as the pirate's hand was about to slide in along her neckline, the full of breath rang out. "Fuck! Come on, brothers!" The vigorous young man's voice was full of anger. "Damn bullying people in our school like this!" The dazzling silver-white photon energy sword flashed in front of Nan like a firework, and in the next instant, she fell into a warm embrace. Li Zuxing approached the pirate leader and caught the pirate by surprise. The lightning-like mental power was mixed with silver light, leaving several wounds on his body. Zinan and Jiu Lingnian were with him, and the young man's anger was fierce strong. The consultant put down the girl in his arms. "Is it okay?" Nan sobbed, thank you." Her cry awakened a group of desperate people. They slowly raised their heads and looked at the pirates who were being forced to suffer from the enemy. Slowly, tears welled up from their eye sockets. They gritted their teeth and resisted their tremors. Bending his body and crying silently. The consultant patted her shoulder comfortably and loosened the straps tied to her. "Go and help them untie." Then his eyes were cold, and he raised his weapon and walked towards the pirate leader. The pirate leader was caught off guard at the beginning, but soon he reacted, and a fierce color appeared in his eyes. "Good boy, courageous." "Fuck your mother's nonsense." Li Zuxing kicked his abdomen, and the energy sword swept across the pirate's chest. "Condescending, scum." The pirate escaped later, but his violent mood changed. He looked at Li Zuxing, and the more he looked at him, the more he felt that this young man was unusual. "Boy, you have a good talent. You are a fart cadet, as long as you kill me now. Go out, I promise you will be reused." Although the attack technique is still very unfamiliar, the momentum is very scary. This is a fool's cheat? His little friends were outraged, and they regarded this sentence as an insult to Li Zuxing by the pirates, and their attack power increased again. They all decided to help Li Zuxing save face. "You are not allowed to insult my teammates." The consultant stood up the energy sword and approached the pirate step by step. He looked very imposing. The pirate laughed, disdainfully. "Chengyang is now such a bunch of rascals. It's just a few elementary school students who don't have all their hairs." He smiled coldly and took out the weapon from his arms. A super gun could kill them, but he just couldn't move his hand when he touched the muzzle of the gun. The brain seemed to be unable to control it and fixed his whole person in place. The pirate shook his hands vigorously, sweating on his forehead. Watching the consultant Cheng get closer and closer, he couldn't move, his thighs trembling with the sense of danger of death. Damn! Whoever kills me, will wait for the interstellar pirate's revenge. The energy sword made by the consultant did not hesitate at all. It pierced his lower abdomen quickly and fiercely. The pirate's eyes went dark, his brain was in severe pain, and he fainted directly to the ground. The onlookers took a breath. Why didn't they suddenly stop moving and let others attack? Do you threaten others without moving? Are all interstellar pirates mentally retarded? Why all of a sudden? Zinan glanced at the pirates on the ground in confusion, then at the surrounding partners, and finally looked at Council Cheng anxiously. Why did he suddenly stop moving? Now, dead. The consultant said, not dead. Although the death of interstellar pirates is not a pity, it is best to leave it to the Empire. Several people heaved a sigh of relief. Ling Nian, look for the NO28 jammer on his body. Li Zuxing and him went to find the jammer, and the other three went to treat the wounded students. When the jammer was turned off, the helper signals on more than a dozen students immediately alarmed the high-level school. After a few seconds, the school's emergency cabin had stopped in front of them, and the four teachers came down with serious expressions. After seeing this scene, they were shocked and their complexions became ugly. It was not until they saw them that the students who had suffered this ordeal cried bitterly as if they had come alive, as if to cry out all their fears, anger, grievances. Many of them are used by pirates to vent their anger. Some of them even need to be sent to the ambulance cabin by the medical team immediately. They dare not think about it. If no one comes to rescue them. If these people come later, some of them will die? The teacher sent them to the spaceship in batches, but no one moved first. Everyone saw the person who had saved him over and over again. They kept saying thank you and imprinted each of them on the bottom of their hearts. They were moved and grateful. Their lips trembled, but they didn't know what to say except thank you. The sentence "damn bullying our school like this" is really the warmest thing they have ever heard. It's really the warmest words. The author has something to say. When the others are gone, several people will blow to each other. Ah, you are so handsome, you can't move the handsome guy anymore. Consultant Cheng, yes. Li Zuxing and the others breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the teachers take everyone away. The school staff once again checked the entire Broken Star, and had already handed over the half-dead pirate leader to the Imperial Army. They could let go of this matter. This relaxation was tired and hungry. Now I didn't have the energy to catch the prey. I found a safe place and used the nutrient solution. 5 grown-up boys lay on the grass and looked at the stars in the sky. Gu sighed incomparably. Did you see the faces of the teachers? I almost thought that they were going to rectify the choppy on the spot. I also saw a certain teacher kick him secretly. Li Zuxing lazily, using a lot of strength, he almost kicked him out. They started to laugh, and the laughter alarmed the flying insects in the grass, flying around them like revenge. The school has taken all the responsibility for this time. They want to end the entrance trial for our 3 planets ahead of time. They are now in a meeting to discuss this matter. Ling Nian glanced at Guang Nao and told his teammates the news. NS. Several people suddenly sighed again. I just felt a little bit. Why didn't we put us in a place where students from other planets tried? Should be afraid of our mentality. After a lot of talks, after a few people routinely conducted a wave of business exchanges, the topic naturally touched on the interstellar pirates they met today. I collected their information, Ling Nian said suddenly. The pirates hunted by the Empire do not lack outstanding people. They have many strongholds, and each is more secretive. The names of the leaders of each organization are famous on each planet. One of them is very special. Li Zuxing became interested. He propped up his upper body and looked at him sideways. The black and close-fitting uniform of the Chengyang Military Academy made him handsome. Who? Ling Nian, worser the masked man. The consultant opened his eyes closed, and he repeated slowly, Wasser. Anyone, Ling Nian, no one knows his real name. Then how unique is he? Li Zuxing was really curious, powerful. Ling Nian shook his head, more than that. He is a lone ranger in the universe. No one knows how much his mental power is, but he is definitely the most advanced one in the known data. He even faintly exceeds the leaders of several other pirate organizations. He can rely on himself and other forces. Evenly matched, it's a very tricky character. Combined with his powerful ability is his cruelty. It's rare to see Ling Nian use so many words to describe a person, and they all became curious about this masked man. Can't catch it. I can't catch it, Ling Nian said, no one has even seen his true appearance. Although this person is also a person to be captured by the Empire, this kind of solitary behavior and the Empire's unique admiration for the strong made a group of teenagers with higher hearts and whistles in excitement. He will not be long. Now, my brothers will teach him how to be a man. He should be famous. Man, let him be a stepping stone to our famous star network. Li Zuxing also yelled a few words after them playfully, without noticing the playful gaze of the advisor behind him staring at them. Ling Nian rolled his eyes blankly. He has been missing for a month. Hey! Ji was surprised. Missing? There hasn't been any news about him since last month. Ling Nian stared at the vast sky, I guess from clues that he should be dead. Just taking this person as the first goal after entering the army, and knowing that the person is dead in the next second, Zinan let out a sigh of the boss. There is no stepping stone for yangmingxing.com. Li Zuxing felt that something was wrong, so he lay back on the grass again and began to think about whether there was this number in the original book. I can't remember the details, but I really don't have any impression. If Ling Nian said, how could such a powerful person be unknown in the text, or become the protagonist's gangster or the younger brother, or the supervillain? In the end, he could only believe that most of Ling Nian's speculations were right, and the famous pirate masked Werther had indeed died a month ago. But this time is really a coincidence. The storyline of Journey on Hand also started a month ago. Counselor Cheng didn't say a word next to him, his face was smiling, as if he was very interested in this topic, but he didn't seem to be interested at all. Before they could talk about the next topic, the rescuers on their bodies lit up at the same time. The results of the discussion by the school were very quick. Within an hour, they had decided to end the trial of admission to the 3 planets ahead of schedule. The huge spacecraft returned to the center of the broken star. The 3 persons in charge summoned the students to board the ship and announced the trial. An early closure. Most of the students did not understand. Therefore, the 3 persons in charge did not conceal the school's intention of failing to account at all. They finished the incident and said, this incident is our mistake, and the school will take all responsibilities. The speaking teacher smiled bitterly, of course, if you are against Chengyang Military Academy and want to drop out, you can contact the person in charge tonight. Our school will complete all the procedures for you, and contact your favorite school for the entrance test. No one said to drop out of school. This is of course. Chengyang Military Academy is so difficult to enter. Besides, this time the mistake is really not in the school, and the school has a sincere and good attitude of admitting it. Who is so stupid not to choose Chengyang Military Academy to withdraw from other schools? What's more, those who choose military academies are not afraid to face danger face to face. They are even more curious about another thing. Can you tell us who saved the classmates? Who is so awesome who pretended to be such a big force? Come, let them pay their respects. The teacher was overjoyed, thinking that starting from this angle might be able to inspire the students' enthusiasm. He immediately spit, and used all the available praises, mercilessly, and ruthlessly praised Li Zuoxing and his party in front of all the students. People again. Li Zuoxing's group among the students. It was praised as the hope of the Chengyang Military Academy this year and extremely rare talents in the public. The thin-skinned young people were more uncomfortable than the other. Li Zuxing even saw the embarrassed expression on the face of the consultant Cheng. He was even more eye-catching than his tender face and clear eyes. Who can guess that this guy is 38 years old this year? The person in charge of the Big Dipper walked up to them from the side. He was not polite, and asked directly, "What is the name of your team?" The five looked at each other and shook their heads tacitly. "No." The person in charge said helplessly, "Then think about one now, and tell me later that when you go back, the school will praise the five of you. This is the first time your team has faced all the students. I hope you can discuss it seriously." They answered that they were calm, and the person in charge left with satisfaction. After he left, Zinan giggled, "We are going to make a name for Cheng Yang." "What are you thinking about?" Li Zuxing leaned over and flicked his forehead. "What I want to think about now is the name of the team. The Expendables. Is it because you didn't die fast enough? The handsome team. This can be. Farewell, it's too arrogant, easy to pull hatred. Then the Eagles are awesome, awesome, and cute." The consultant Cheng couldn't bear so much degrading team names on his head, interrupted their discussion, and said, "Dream Team." Li Zuxing had a smile in his eyes, "Good name." Others also ridiculed, "Although it's ordinary, it's more reliable than the ones mentioned above. It's just a bitch." They just decided on the name of the team. When Li Zuxing told the person in charge and came back, he saw a girl standing next to his friends talking to them. The footsteps he walked over were heard by them, and the girl turned her head to see him, with a bigger smile on her face, and said sincerely and gratefully, "Thank you for saving me." She said, "My name is Nan, thank you for defeating that imperial scum." Nan, one of the heroines in the original book, has a good personality and a good figure, and is very popular. Li Zuxing likes her quite a bit. "Hello, my name is Li Zuxing." Li Zuxing gave her a sunny smile, and the intimacy rose straight up. "Don't thank you, you should." Zinan approached the consultant Cheng and whispered to him, "Look at Li Zuxing, he is different when he smiles so handsomely with the girl. What do you want to do when he smiles so handsome? Even if he is a brother, why don't I think he treats me? Is it so gentle?" The consultant Cheng pondered this sentence. "Indeed, he doesn't seem to smile at me so brilliantly." Zinan gave him a look that you can understand, and the consultant Cheng put his chin on, looking back at the young girl who was talking on the aisle. Li Zuxing has a good face and a good body. During the transition period from a boy to a man, hormones have boldly released his charm. What's rare is that Nan, who is standing next to him, is not ordinary, with excellent temperament and appearance, and the two seem to match well. Thinking about this, the consultant stood up, buttoned the coat of the military school uniform, and walked in. Nan is a Topian. Nan became visibly nervous when he saw him walking, her eyes trembling constantly showed her shame. "Yes, how did you know?" "I saw it by chance before from the person in charge," said the consultant, curling his lips. "After we get to Topaz, we will have Tonan take us around." "No problem," Nan responded, "just tell me, if I can help, I won't refuse." The consultant enlightened, "There is no place to help, but the auction houses on Topaz are very famous. If we have the opportunity, we would like to visit these places." He blinked at Li Zuxing while talking. Li Zuxing raised his eyebrows, put his fingers in front of his lips and booed, indicating that I understood, without interrupting. Nan thought for a moment, "I can get the entry ticket to the auction house here, but I can't make up 5 of them." "It's okay," the consultant Cheng laughed, and thanked her sincerely, until Nan blushed and left before he sat down with Li Zuxing. Before Li Zuxing asked him, he took the initiative to tell the reason. The auction house of Topia is well known for interstellar, Zhou Xing doesn't want to take a look. Facing the beauty's invitation, who can refuse the eyes of this superb flower with a smile? But this reason is too false, no one will believe it. However, as the protagonist's little brother, Li Zuxing understands very well. "Okay." He smiled, the lights flickered under his eyes, and he looked very handsome. The author has something to say. Da Dang is very happy playing as a gangster now, but after looking at himself to bend himself, he began to seriously pretend to be a straight man. The plot of taking advantage of the attack is behind. Gu has been trying to break the bend and seduce, he. The campus of Chengyang Military Academy is located on Topon, the only one of the 8 major galaxies has no semicolon. After they got off the spacecraft, what caught their eye was the magnificent and vigorous main entrance of the campus. Full of a sense of science and technology and a sense of future, just standing here can feel the glorious glory of Chengyang Military Academy for a century. The freshmen sighed and couldn't bear to remove their eyes. When they thought that they would spend the next 4 years in school, they were all proud and excited. The school building is divided into a large room and a small room. The teacher took them around the school. The big room can accommodate 4 to 6 people, which is convenient for you to cultivate team understanding. The small room is 2 to 3 people. You can choose freely, but rest assured, the big rooms are just living together, and there are separate small rooms inside. Topia is not the main star of the empire, but it is the planet with the most developed economy and trade. It is the most lively and trouble-prone planet where all races live together. When they were walking around the campus, the seniors and sisters who passed by from time to time also gave them curious and kind eyes. All of them were handsome and beautiful. They laughed and laughed, each with a different sense of beauty. Li Zuxing always looks at his face and has a meal. People in the interstellar age have genetic bonuses. They don't look ugly. They are either cute or sexy. Anyone has long hands and soft limbs. This is really heaven. When everything was finished, they were gathered downstairs in the apartment. Chengyang Military Academy speaks by strength, and people from other planets are still going out for trials. At this time, among them, Li Zuxing is the first to choose a room. Zinan and the others had already discussed it enthusiastically before, and they would be secretly excited, staring at Li Zuxing with wide eyes and telling the teacher the room number. Hearing that he wanted the most popular set, all the students sighed. After getting the magnetic card, the 5 people calmly went upstairs in the eyes of envy and resentment. Zinan also twisted his waist braggingly at them, "Don't be envious, it's not so easy to find teammates with 1890 mental power. Extraordinarily arrogant, and a fight." The room selected by Li Zuxing is the apartment on the 56th floor. It simulates a 360-degree ocean view room and uses the highest simulator. The sound of the waves and the refreshing smell are just outside the window. He has never seen the world now. People seem to be close to reality, just like a beach house. For the few Big Dipper people in the sea, they also like them very much. Originally, Li Zuxing wanted to be alone, because he was afraid that one day he would not hold back his hands on one of them. He did not expect that he would lose the rock, paper, scissors and paper scissors to Ling Nian. Ling Nian implied triumph, and his thin lips slightly cocked. "I'm alone. One person, one room can demonstrate the spirit of a winner. The rest is naturally between Li Zuxing and the consultant, and Jiu and Zinan." Seeing his expression, the consultant said, "Zhang Xing, you don't want to be with me." Li Zuxing took his shoulders and walked into the room. "Why, by the way, Nan is here to send the admission ticket to the auction house tonight. It's just that the protagonist is a stunner in his eyes." "Yes," the consultant replied. "The auction house is mixed with dragons and fish, and the environment is complicated. There are some forces in Nan's family. It is a trivial matter to get tickets. The consultant is not prepared to take everyone there at the cost, so he only asked Nan to prepare too." In fact, going to the auction house with Li Zuxing was something outside of his plan, but this was how he made the decision. "Have you heard of NK03? When returning to the room to turn on the anti-eavesdropping mode, the consultant sat down, knocked on the armrest, and suddenly asked. The pink lips were pressed tightly, and the lovely white appeared. "Li Zuxing, I haven't heard of it." As expected, the consultant Cheng threw the information in Guangmin to him, but it was not the news of NK03, but an old man with a pale and wrinkled face. NK03 is a forbidden drug developed by the Empire. Advisor Cheng Ping dropped a thunder flatly. The developer was killed. There are only 2 bottles in the entire 8 galaxies. This person once sold one a month ago. Bottle NK03, he will also participate in this auction this time. Selling banned drugs? Very bold. That's why we are going, the consultant Cheng laughed. If we find evidence that he sells NK03, then we will be famous. For young people, becoming a well-known hero is an extremely tempting thing. He looked at Li Zuxing. The youth seemed to have thousands of stars twinkling in his eyes, and when he laughed, the sunlight jumped at the corner of his mouth, showing a high-spirited fighting spirit. He actually felt a little handsome. Afternoon. Nan delivered the entrance ticket to the auction house on time. As the consultant Cheng said, there were only 2. Only then did the other 3 people who didn't have a ticket know that the 2 of them were going to the auction house alone, worrying and dissatisfied. According to their words, how can Zhuangxing and Wenqing go out to play alone? Is this for fun? This is obviously to surrender his life to accompany the beauty. The 3 big men almost didn't nag Li Zuxing and the consultant Cheng to death. When they walked out of the school gate, the consultant Chengdu was expressionless, obviously he hadn't recovered. It is not convenient for Nan to go to the auction house. She waited quietly outside, worried. You too, be careful. When he turned his attention to the consultant Cheng, he added shyness to his worry, please come back as soon as possible. The consultant Cheng comforted, we will. He stretched out his hand towards Nan. Nan's white cheeks were flushed instantly, and she raised her hand and put it on the hand of the consultant Cheng. The consultant Cheng leaned over and kissed the back of her hand, staring at her with deep and clear eyes like a lake. Thank you for your concern. As if a strong wind was blowing a spring lake, Nan's heart throbbed violently, her delicate face was more affectionate, and this feeling made her scared and looking forward to it. She dared not talk to the consultant again, and looked down. On tiptoes. After walking away, Li Zuxing teased, it's amazing. Counselor Cheng showed him a tacit man's smile. Can you teach me how to talk to girls? Li Zuxing, you seem to be good at it. This is the first time he has been asked about this kind of question by the consultant. He joked, with your eyes and your smile, who can refuse you with your eyes? Is that right? Li Zuxing put his shoulders on him, suddenly bent over, and his smiling eyes broke into the eyes of the consultant Cheng. Then he curled his lips. A sense of weirdness suddenly rose from my heart, and the consultant said, yes. It happened to be in the entry area of the auction house. The auction house is not a store or a street, but an entire area. There are dark protective screens in the sky, and people in it cannot use any monitoring devices and high-tech weapons. Therefore, after they stepped into the auction house, it was like stepping into the dark night. The sky was grey, the jagged buildings with all kinds of magical lights, the roads were crowded, and people selling drugs and weapons abound on the roadside. The scene was chaotic and chaotic. Nuisance. The gatekeeper asked in a low voice, where is the ticket? The consultant Cheng gave him the 2 tickets in his hand. After checking by the gatekeeper, he handed them 2 white round bracelets. While monitoring their location, this bracelet can also detect mental energy fluctuations up to 1 meter. The real auction site in the auction house is in the center, and all other places sell a variety of goods. They went all the way to the center. At first, drugs and weapons were sold on the side of the road. After going inside, the caged people turned out to be living people. The Empire has 8 galaxies, the planets under it are countless, and the number of races can't be counted, but the ones that are brought here for sale all have beautiful appearances and unique abilities. Li Zuxing clenched his fists. The young Tao's cub with animal ears knelt on the ground and was constantly cursed by the seller. Like a beast, he crawled slowly on the ground in parallel with his hands and feet, and there was a path under him. The buyer laughed dirty and disgusting, and tore off the only clothing on the girl in the cage, watching her hold herself tightly and weeping numbly. There were constant whimpers coming from the roadside. There were all items returned by the guests. Those who could not be sold again were thrown to the garbage disposer by the seller angrily, waiting for death. From the beginning to the present, no matter the people or things I met, they were all sunny and bright, but the darkness here made Li Zuxing unable to pretend not to see it. Even because of the light before, it makes this place even darker. What are you doing? Beside them, a human trafficking hawker kicked the cage fiercely, and said viciously, I asked you to roll up water with your tongue to drink, didn't you let you drink water like a person? Know how dogs drink water? Drink water like a dog, understand? Li Zuxing stared at the person who was lying on the ground drinking water like a beast. Anger and indifference ripped in his mind. There are dark areas in any world, which cannot be prevented or escaped. No matter how many numbers are heard in the ears of unrelated people, it is just a number. But after seeing it with my own eyes, how can I remain indifferent? Li Zuxing is not a holy father. His heart is more indifferent and ruthless than most people. At this time, the indifference is clamoring that it's about your and not the nostalgia, but the legal education and basic morals of human beings for 23 years of life are not. Can't let him divert his eyes indifferently. But there is no need to divert attention. Because he is Li Zuxing. The consultant bowed his head and saw his clenched fist. He sighed in his heart. That's why he didn't want to bring the teenagers here. Especially the young man beside him. Li Zuxing and this place are born in two worlds, and they are destined to be incompatible with fire and water. It was just because he wanted to see his reaction that he saw such a scene early. The consultant became inexplicably vague. He coughed, patted Li Zuxing on the back, and whispered, calm down. Those who are capable do not obey the rules of the empire, these behaviors cannot be extinct. But contrary to his expectations, Li Zuxing prepared to walk through this human trafficking market with him expressionlessly, without acting impulsively. When he didn't smile, he looked completely different in normal times. The first time the consultant saw them, the little son didn't smile, and looked at him in surprise for several times. I'm not going to be impulsive, Li Zuxing thought he was weird. Without a plan, impulsiveness is just harmful. Li Zuxing was born to do whatever he thought of, not to mention the fact that he was still doing nothing after he was wearing a book. Is this still a manly man? If you want to play, play a big one, play to conquer the world, and play all the rotten places can be pinched to death with one finger. That's cool. However, as soon as these words fell, the consultant realized that Li Zuxing's expression changed, and he rushed forward a few steps, blocking a young man curled up on the ground. Stop it! Behind him, the boy raised his head in pain and looked at Li Zuxing. The consultant Cheng Cheng was surprised to find that the child had an extremely beautiful face. Dust can't cover his facial features, on the contrary, it is more beautiful and moving. The tyrannical boy was so thin and weak that if he didn't look closely, he would almost be mistaken for a girl. If it is a girl, it must be stunning on earth. Presumably his master thought so too, so he often beat and scolded him. This meeting saw someone come out troublesome, and sneered, if you want to pretend to be a hero, you have to see if you can afford it. Do you want to break the rules in the area of the auction house? The face dog Li Zuxing, who just felt confident that he didn't need to shoot now, was sonorous and powerful. I'll buy him. The boy curled up on the ground looked at him incredulously. The back standing in front of him was tall and straight, as if it could block all injuries. The seller was taken aback. What, did you buy him? He looked happy, and grasped Li Zuxing tightly with his backhand, for fear that he would regret it. 500 coins. You give me 500 coins is enough. The price is much less than Li Zuxing thought. He transferred the money to the seller, and reached out his hand to help the beautiful boy on the ground, gently. How about it, can I still go? The palms of his hands were warm and clean, without a trace of blood and dirt. The beautiful boy looked at his hands and then at his eyes. Suddenly the corners of his eyes were red, as if he was about to cry. "Thank you," he said cunningly, "Master. The author has something to say. De Diao is a face dog. He now likes the protagonist only because of the protagonist's face. I can call the master or something for the young boy, and I can do it for 10 days. Among the trafficked races, women and children accounted for the majority. For the straightforward stallion world, men have no second use other than acting as coolies and enduring punches and kicks. For Yen, in addition to punches and kicks, there is also the humiliation that this face brings to him. The seller was reluctant to sell his face at a low price, and he was reluctant to spend money to transform him into a woman. Just let him put on women's clothes and pretend to be a woman to deceive the guests. After being bought back for the first time, Yen was guilty and uneasy. He wanted to show the truth to the buyer and offered him loyalty. But in the end, he only saw the new owner's eyes from shock to disgust, and in the rage, he got a scar on his body. The trafficked person does not have human rights. Yen's heart is numb in the constant being returned and then bought by others. He no longer resists and no longer expects. Those insults and beatings about him also deeply shocked him. Disgusted with myself, and this world, and everyone. He wanted to drag them all together. The beautiful boy's name was Yen. When Li Zuxing pulled him up, the corners of his eyes were flushed with redness, as if they contained rain and dew. They should not drip, even crying. Li Zuxing took out a tissue for him. Yen waved his hand hurriedly, his shabby shirt slipped to his elbow, and there were many bruises on his forearm. "No need." He added another in a low voice, clasping Li Zuxing's cuffs with his slender fingers, bewildered. "Thank you, Master." When a beautiful male and female teenager looks at you seriously and calls for the master, it can greatly satisfy people's desire to conquer and control. Li Zuxing sighed, "Don't call me that. I didn't want to be your master. If I can, I just want to talk about a cooperation with you." The beautiful boy was taken aback. "What? The child doesn't look as innocent as it appears. They can't play with little Sunday." The consultant Cheng took a step forward, put it on Li Zuxing's shoulder, and leaned into his ear and said, "Zhou Xing, it's time to go." His hair was picked up by the wind, passing across Li Zuxing's face, and a light scent came from him. This was also something Li Zuxing discovered after wearing the book. The male protagonist in the original book, Chuan Interstellar, the first strong consultant, agreed that the body was actually affected by NK03, with a breeze-like body fragrance. The body scents are varied, sometimes absent, just because the smell depends on luck, and the smell is always different, so Li Zuxing is even more fascinated by the smell of his body. He tilted his head and sniffed in the protagonist's hair as if inadvertently. "Yes, it's time to go." The anxious Yen was very concerned about the cooperation. He said, "Master, Li Zuxing, you follow us first. After I finish the matter, there is one thing you still need to decide whether to do it or not." Yen nodded and followed them silently and obediently. The consultant frowned. He asked Li Zuxing, "Where are you going to put him?" Li Zuxing hugged him openly, and after pulling closer to the protagonist, the fragrance smelled secretly, "I will solve it." This posture was not very comfortable, and it was too intimate, but he glanced at Yen behind his eyes. The consultant Jinzhou hugged him and nodded. The closer they appear, the more this person is bound to do whatever he wants. There are also guards in front of the auction house, but tickets are not allowed. It was early after they walked in, and after finding a corner to sit down, they waited for the auction to begin. Before long, the dim hall was full of people, and a person walked up on the front stage. "The time is up, we don't have much to say, and the auction starts now." Li Zuxing didn't know many of the things that were being auctioned, and seeing the consultant became interested. He knew that there was nothing unusual. After halfway through the auction, a beautiful woman with beast ears, tied to a chair, was pushed up unexpectedly. The most noticeable thing is not her gorgeous face, but those clear blue eyes that are as blue as the sky, which makes this woman look innocent, and innocent that contradicts her figure and face. Just like the little fox they met on Broken Star. Li Zuxing rubbed his forehead and turned to look at the unmoved consultant Cheng Cheng. The male protagonist looked at the woman on the stage with a cold gaze. He didn't seem to be interested at all. He didn't think of who it was at all, as if the person on the stage was not one of his harems. Are you not interested? The consultant Cheng asked back, am I pretty good in your heart? In the whole book, the women who are consultants are so good-natured that they can meet beauties in their arms and hugs at random. However, there are too many beauties, and the author can't write them. Instead, all the female characters follow a piece of paper. There is no sense of prominence. Just kidding, Li Zuxing poked his hand, the profile means complimenting you for being handsome. The consultant Cheng slightly curled his lips, handsome is only a little more handsome than you. The beauty who belonged to one of the protagonist's harem on the stage was sent off the stage without even a single line. The remaining auctions were more efficient. Soon after, an old man with a slightly humped back and wrinkled face appeared on the stage. Li Zuxing and consultant Cheng concentrated their minds and stared at him on stage. This old man auctioned off a newly developed medicine. Although it was extremely rare, it was not the ones on the imperial banned drug list. After he finished the auction and stepped down, the two looked at each other and left in a low-key manner. They successfully blocked him behind the auction floor. He is called a pharmacist in the auction house. The pharmacist wanted to take a detour, and the consultant Cheng stretched out his hand to stop him, and said politely, "Don't go, we still have something to ask you." "I don't know anything," the pharmacist lowered his head, his voice slowly and old, "Young man, you found the wrong person." The consultant turned his lips, "You are so famous, how could I find the wrong person?" He bent down and approached, "You are busy walking, and I won't delay your time, as long as you tell me who bought it from you." "NK03 will do." The pharmacist then looked up at him, "NK03 I don't have one here, you're wrong." The consultant Cheng didn't seem to hear, "I asked you the last time, who bought NK03? The pharmacist stepped back cautiously, still wanting to answer no. He wrapped a circle of invisible thread around his neck, tightened and then tightened in groups, as if he would be able to twist his head and neck in the next moment. This is obviously a wound caused by mental power, but the monitoring device in his hand did not even make a sound. He was panting hard, his heart was shocked. What are you doing?" A man in his 20s came from behind and looked at them with a smile, "What are the guests doing here?" The pharmacist felt his neck tighten, and for a moment he thought he was going to die. The next moment the mental energy on his neck dissipated, and he coughed violently. Yen said lowly to them, "Master, this is the owner of the auction house." Li Zuxing and the consultant looked at each other, and Li Zuxing took the initiative to speak, with a dull and sweet temperament. "It just happens to come to get to know the old man who is familiar." The auction house owner, really? He was smiling all the time, but looked unpredictable. After turning his eyes on a few of them, he stopped on Li Zuxing, "Pharmacist, did you deceive the customer again?" The pharmacist trembled and said tremblingly, "No, no." The auction house owner smiled again, "Come here." The pharmacist's fear can be seen by anyone, but he still walked over. When he walked to the auction house owner grabbed his neck and severely broke his limbs. "What?" The drug seller trembled and cried out in pain. Li Zuxing's expression changed, and he stepped forward to stand in front of the consultant Cheng and Yen, facing the auction house owner with sharp eyes. The advisor Cheng and Yen, who was blocked by him, were taken aback. No one has ever stood in front of them when they were in danger. Li Zuxing's back is firm, generous and powerful, very safe and very manly. This feeling of treating them as protectors, can't tell. The auction house owner still smiles cordially, "A few guests, do you think it is enough to teach him this way?" Li Zuxing smiled suddenly, there was nothing serious in the first place. We are very guilty for you to do this. The auction house owner glanced at him with interest. Then how do you think you can get rid of the guilt in your heart? We take care of it. Li Zuxing approached him and took the drug seller from him. The auction house owner really let go. But the moment after he let go, a blood flower bloomed from the drug seller's heart like an explosion, and the blood spewed out. Even if Li Zuxing felt wrong and took a step back quickly, it was still not fast enough for the auction house owner's hand. He and the advisor behind him became successful, and the eyes of the two of them instantly chilled. The auction house owner laughed, still staring at Li Zuxing. How can I make the guest feel guilty? Guest, what's your name? Our auction house will give you something to compensate for the insufficiency that made you see this side. Li Zuxing didn't speak, and the boss didn't mind, just smiled and didn't let it go. Haha, Li Zuxing, they all call me a big hang. Da Diao should be a pseudonym with a special meaning. The auction house owner nodded, glanced at the corpse in his arms, and personally went to pick up the gift to be given to them. The consultant said, "Throw it here." His tone was very cold, and his mental power had quietly sneaked into the head of the auction house owner. Li Zuxing put down the corpse, his body was already covered with blood. When they wanted to leave, Yan squatted beside the drug seller's corpse and observed carefully for a while, then raised his head and said to Li Zuxing, "Master, there is something under the skin." Hearing this, Li Zuxing said nothing, and picked up the corpse again. "Let's go quickly." Yan turned his head in embarrassment and followed them all the way out of the auction. How could Li Zuxing trust people so easily? What if he is a bad person? What if he lied? Is this person not even considering it? It's stupid. After walking out of the store and finding a hidden space, General Li Zuxing threw the dagger to Yan, and then placed the body in front of him. With speechless trust, Yan didn't dare to look up, his eyes were sour, and he drew a few sharply behind the drug seller. Without seeing what he had done, he had stood up and would take him from under the skin of the pharmacist. Find something to him. This thing resembles the skin of a human or animal, with strange numbers engraved on the skin. Li Zuxing was silent for a while, and threw it to the consultant Cheng, recognizing his fate, feeling that he was illiterate. "I don't know it." The consultant became amused. "How do you know this is the password?" He didn't even look at it, but directly into his arms, then looked at Yan, and squinted his eyes. Yan was silent, his eyes gleaming only when he looked at Li Zuxing. "It's time for them to go back to school." Li Zuxing said to Yan, "The cooperation I told you before was." Li Zuxing's request was not difficult, he gave Yan freedom and the capital to take off. He wanted him to become stronger, not to become another person's vassal. He always admires people who are confident and powerful. Yanlin looked at him deeply when he left, wanted to remember him, then knelt down on one knee, with a firm tone, "I will bring you a surprise, my master." He sincerely regarded Li Zuxing as his master. After returning to school, the consultant threw the pie with the password to Ling Nian. "Can you understand?" Ling Nian picked it up and looked at it carefully for a while, interested. "Let me crack it." After speaking, he headed back to the room. They were covered in blood stains and could use cloaks to cover them up on the road. Now when they came back, they were shocked by the teammates. There was only one bathroom in the room. Li Zuxing said, "Let's wash it together." The consultant nodded casually, but suddenly remembered another thing. "What do you mean by the nickname Dang Hang? The people in this article don't know what this means?" Li Zuxing was silent for a while. "It's a word to describe my innocence and cuteness." The consultant Cheng Hao laughed and said, "Then you are indeed very embarrassed." Li Zuxing's expression changed, wondering if he should be happy. "Thank you." They took the clothes, and the bathroom took into account the problem of multiple people taking a bath. It was divided into inside and outside, separated by a layer of special material in the middle. Li Zuxing took off his shirt as he walked in, acting handsome, his abdominal muscles curled slightly, and his masculine aura instantly burst. He bent down and put the dirty clothes in the washing machine. The consultant also took off his shirt, leaned over on his back, and threw them in together. There is no fragrance on the protagonist's body this time. Li Zuxing regrets. Then I thought, if he did that kind of thing, what would the smell of his body smell like? In the book, when he and the woman rolled the sheets, would there be a body fragrance that made women feel inferior after smelling it? Good figure, the consultant unbuttoned his pants, just a little bit behind me. I didn't see what's wrong. Li Zuxing put his chin on and looked at the consultant's upper body several times. I have what you have, otherwise you turn around and show it to me. Young people are so serious. The consultant became funny, and actually turned around. How is it? Li Zuxing's voice was filled with water vapor that gradually diffused. Well, I surrender.